out there from the Bedrock Farm. Here we are in springtime, and we are so excited because our Rooted in Urban Agriculture youth employees applied for a By Youth for Youth grant, which is a very cool grant opportunity where youth apply for grants, but youth are also on the committee to decide grant priorities and to choose the grantees. So our youth have been on both sides of the By Youth for Youth world, both the committee and the grantees, and this year we are grantees. They wrote a grant to build 10 new wooden raised bed gardens for our Bedrock Community Garden, where many of our beds have reached the end of their life, and so they're ready to be replaced. So this is what we're going to be showing y'all how to build today, is a wooden raised bed garden. This is not all the way bolted together yet, but you can see it's made up of two long sides. Here's one of the long sides. And the long sides have wooden connector pieces that are holding the two long boards together. And then we have two short sides that are held together by these 4x4 corner posts. So this is what we're going for in the end. We will bolt these together when we're ready to make this into a finished final bed, and we will carry it over to our community garden and have a beautiful new bed for our gardeners. We're using pine and Doug fir, which is the cheapest kind of boards that you can get. They also do rot, so be ready if you build raised beds out of some of that untreated Doug and pine to Doug fir and pine to replace your beds. Probably about every 7 years they'll need to be replaced, or at least some boards replaced, because they do start to rot. Do not use treated wood. Do not use green treated wood, pressure treated wood for garden beds. The chemicals in that wood can leach into your soil and get into your food. So stay away from those. If you want a really rot resistant wood that lasts a really long time, you should get cedar. Cedar is naturally rot resistant, so it'll last much longer. My cedar beds that I built where I live are already on year 10, and they are totally fine, super sturdy still, but they do cost more. And they also don't come in as wide of planks. So if you want to make a bed this tall, you might need to get 3 boards instead of 2. So cedar's the way to go if you want an untreated wood that will last. But again, it's going to be a little more expensive. So you all decide what's right for you. Should we head into the greenhouse and show y'all how to put these together? Let's do it. All right, so here we are in the greenhouse, aka our wood shop also, but look at all these beautiful plant babies everywhere. Oh my gosh, this is such a fun place to be at this time of year. Planting time is coming up, y'all, but it's also our wood shop for now. And if you're going to build wooden raised beds, you're going to need some tools. So one of the things that you will need is a drill. We're going to use drills both to put in screws, outdoor screws. We're also going to use an impact driver to put bolts into the beds. I would recommend using bolts instead of screws because they are so much stronger. Screws sometimes over time will rust out and your beds will start to come apart, or they'll start to pull apart. Bolts are really sturdy, and we use something called a lag bolt. So you can get bolts that you need a washer, and then you need another piece to screw them together on the other side. Lag bolts you just use pretty much like a screw. So you need a washer, and then you need a lag bolt. These are 5/16 inch lag bolts, and these ones are 4 inches long. And these are washers that are 5/16 inches too. These are galvanized, which means they are treated so that they will not rust outside in the weather. So get galvanized. Zinc also works. Stainless steel is another option, but stainless steel is a lot more expensive. So we go with galvanized. And I'll put a materials list in the comments too, so y'all don't have to memorize all this as you're watching. You'll need a measuring tape. You will need a 1/8 inch drill bit for putting in the screws. You will need a drill bit that is the right shape for the top of your screws. So we are using a star bit because you can see the top of our screws have a star shape. I like to use this shaped drill bit over a Phillips head, which is just kind of like an X, because it's easier to put them in without accidentally stripping the screw with the bit jumps around sometimes in the Phillips head. These are super sturdy. and I like the star bits better personally. Also, if you're getting screws, make sure you're getting some kind of outdoor screw. So we got triple coated deck screws, which are going to do fine outside in the weather. So that's something to consider with your materials. You're also going to need a straight edge for marking where you're going to drill your bolt holes, and you'll need some wood. So the type of wood that we're using are 2x10s. What the wood sizes are called does not match up actually with the actual sizes of the wood. So yeah, 9¼ inches wide and 1½ inches thick. So, but it's called a 2x10. You can also use 2x8s, which are just a little bit less wide. You can also do beds that are just one single board. It just depends on how high you want your bed to be. So we're using double high beds because they really help with, for folks who are gardening, you don't have to bend over as far. So, for your back, your knees, it's nice to have your beds nice and high. So that's what we're doing. And I'm going to show you right away how to make a long side of the bed. So if y'all want to check it out, these are two 8-foot long boards, or any longer than 8 feet. You're going to have to reinforce the boards with some rebar or something because they will start to bow out. So 8 foot's about as long as you want your bed. 4 feet wide is more the width you want so that you're able to reach the middle from both sides of your bed. If you go much longer than 4 feet, you might have to climb in there to get to the middle of your bed, which is fine. Climb in there if you want to, but we build our bed so that we can reach into the middle. So we have two 2x10 pieces of pine right here, wood, and what we did was we measured where we're going to put the bolt holes. So we're going to build long sides and we're going to build short sides, and we are going to have bolts in both the long sides and the short sides. So the reason we need to measure is so the bolts don't bump into each other. So we offset them so that the bolts can both go in without bumping into each other. So for the long sides, we are going to make a line, and I already actually did this, but you want to measure a line 3¼ inches from the end of the bed. So I just use a little carrot shape to mark where it is, and then I would use my straight edge to draw a line. So now I have a line that's 3¼ inches from the edge of the bed. So draw that line, and then we want to have our bolts going in 2½ inches from the top and the bottom of the board. So I would make a mark at 2½ inches. I would make another mark at 2½ inches from the top, and then I turn it into an X and I circle it. This is where we're going to drill for our bolts. So we're going to do 2 bolts in each board. If you do just 1 bolt, imagine what the board is going to do with the weather over time. It'll start kind of bending out and coming undone. So you want to have 2 bolts in each board. So that's going to be 8 bolts for each side, if that makes sense. So let me show y'all how we drill the holes for the bolts. So I forgot to mention the other type size of drill bit that we're going to need, which is 1/4 inch. This is the size bit that you'll need for putting in the 5/16 inch lag bolts. So it's just easy. You don't want to, if you haven't used drills before, just keep away from the spinning parts. Don't touch those. Make sure you don't have anything dangling that's going to get caught in your drill. Don't wear gloves. You don't want those to get caught in your drill. And the way I teach students is to put one hand on the trigger and one hand on the back of the drill. That way your hands are nowhere near the spinning parts. And don't touch the bit when it comes out of the wood. Because of the friction, it will be hot. So we're building these with our middle schoolers this week too. This is part of our project, is having this be an educational opportunity for our younger students as well. So we're just going to drill a hole all the way in through the wood. Drill another one. A third one. And a fourth one. And these are the holes that your lag bolts are going to go in just a minute. The other thing we need to do is connect these 2 long boards together. So that's where our screws and our smaller bits come in. So let me just grab a screw. So for this one, I really just eyeball it. I just put X's in 3 different spots on each board. So make sure they're, you have 3 going into this board, 3 going into this board, and I do them in a diamond pattern. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you're going to take your 1/8-inch drill bits and you're going to drill some pilot holes. Pilot holes are holes that you drill so that the screw doesn't have to, your drill doesn't have to work so hard pushing a screw through the wood. So I just make 6 of those, and then I'm going to take my screw, and you want to make sure your screw is long enough that it's going to go through this board and into this board, but not too long that it's going to go out the other end. So these are 2.5-inch deck screws, so that's just about perfect. And then I'm going to just get my drill bit lined up with the top of the screw. Oops. And then I'm going to drill that in. And you don't want to drill it too deep because you don't want it, again, to go out the back of the board below. So you would just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, 6 screws in this one, and then you'll have 2 long boards that are stuck together. And you'll have your bolt holes. So that's what your long side is going to look like. And I can bring you over here to see. This one is finished. So you can see it's held together by those pieces. And these are 18-inch pieces of 2x10. So I just used a board and cut them into 18-inch pieces to make these connector pieces. So next up, after we're done admiring our long side, is the short side. So the short side is a little different. What's going to hold these 2 boards together are these 4x4 corner posts. Similar to the 2x10 connector pieces, these are going to be 18 inches tall. And that is so that they can span the length of the whole side of the bed. And you're going to match these up as best you can so that they are flush with the side of these 2x10s. These 2 pieces of wood are cut to 3 feet and 9 inches. That is because to make a 4-foot bed, we're going to have our long sides sticking out on either side of these short sides, and that will add 1.5 inches over here, 1.5 inches over here, and this will be a 4-foot side of a bed when you get done with that. So the measurements for this one are a little bit different. So what we're going to measure is 1.25 inches from the top and the bottom. Sorry, 1.5 inches from the top and the bottom, right here. So I would mark 1.5 inches. I'd mark 1.5 inches here. And then I would use my straight edge again, and I would make my line. It's already on here, but I'm just showing y'all. And then we are going to make a line 1.5 inches from the top of the board and 1.5 inches from the bottom of the board. Then you'll make your X just like we did on the other one. And now we know where we're going to drill our bolt holes. For these ones, you want the bolts to go through the 2x10 all the way into the 4x4 so they hold it together. So we're going to start with a pilot hole right here. And you can, if you want to, after you do your first pilot hole, just pop a bolt right in there so it holds the thing in place so that you don't accidentally wiggle the boards while you're putting in your next pilot holes. Oops. Sometimes your drill bit will come out. That's okay. It means it just wasn't tight enough in your drill. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 pilot holes with your 1/4-inch drill bit. And then we're going to come along behind with the impact driver and we're going to put bolts in. Impact drivers are loud, so be ready. Actually, it's great if you're doing woodworking to wear earplugs to protect your hearing. But we're just going to put these bolts in. So I put a washer and I put a 5/16 inch lag bolt. So we're just going to get this in here. Impact drivers are the best because they are so powerful. They just snug these two boards together really tight and they make a nice solid seal. So this is a great tool to have if you're going to do woodworking. Impact drivers, I am totally sold. I will never go back to trying to do this with a regular drill. You'll burn out your battery real quick too. So we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts with washers, lag bolts with washers, to connect these 2x10s to the 4x4s. So come on over here and I'll show you what a finished one looks like. So here we have a short side. It's our two boards with the 4x4s connecting the two boards together. And what we're going to do next is take all four sides and assemble them together. So we'll be right back with you outside. All right, so here we are back where we started with our almost finished bed. You can see here's the long sides we made, held together by these 18-inch 2x10s. They are 8-foot long 2x10 planks, two of them. We have our short sides that are made of two 2x10 planks that are 3 feet and 9 inches long, held together with lag bolts and washers drilled into this 4x4, 18-inch piece of 4x4. The last piece for putting this all together is we're going to snug these long sides right up against the short side, like so. Try to make it as flush together on the end like this as you can. And what we're going to do, we already have our pilot holes drilled on this long side, but we're going to make a pilot hole that goes through this board again so that it goes into the 4x4, so that we have a pilot hole that goes all the way through. So I'm just going to do like this. And again, this is using your 1/4 inch drill bit so that it's big enough for your 5/16 inch lag bolt. So grabbing this, and then I'm going to just put this. Whoopsie. Sometimes things come apart. But here it is. You don't want your washer to dig too deep into the wood. Ideally, it's just right flush up against the board. You can see now that this piece is firmly attached to this piece, and we're going to go through the whole entire bed and do 1, 2, 3, 4 lag bolts on each side of each of the long sides to connect them to these 4x4s. So if you come over here and look at the different places where the bolts are on each side, you can see why we measured, because look at this bolt from the short side is going into that 4x4. So is this one, but it's down lower, so it's not going to bump into this bolt as it goes through. So the bolts are slightly offset. This bolt will be higher than this one. This bolt will be lower than this one. So that's why we did the measurements. So that is one way to build a wooden raised bed community, or these are community garden beds, but you can build them for anything. And then the next piece is to put them where you want them, fill them with soil, put in some plants, and then happy gardening, y'all. Raised beds are excellent because the soil warms up a little earlier in the spring, so you can usually plant them out a little earlier. There are fewer weeds, especially to begin with, because you're putting in fresh soil. So if you're new to gardening, it's a lot easier to tell what's a vegetable and what's a weed because you know what you planted in there. They're also really great if you have any kind of mobility issues because you don't have to bend so far to reach your garden. And remember I was saying 4 feet long is about as wide as, or wide is about as wide as you want to go, so you can reach the middle. Look, even short me with my short arms, I can reach the middle of this bed from each side. So that's why we chose 4 feet wide and 8 feet long, because if we did any longer, the wood would start to bow and the bed would start to come apart unless you reinforce it with some rebar or something to hold that wood from bowing out like that. So, happy gardening, y'all. I'll put the design for these beds in the comments too. I came up with this design after building hundreds and hundreds of these in my work in Oakland for families, child care centers, senior centers, and this is the tried and true design that seems to do the best and last the longest. So yeah, if you try it, happy gardening. Let us know how it went. And spring is here, y'all, so get them built. We'll see you soon.